I'm Rod, and this is Chani Vilhauer, my wife, and I've been here since the beginning. What I was following there at the time was him, just the way he shared Christ, the way he lived. Really the first guy I met that walked what he talked, in my opinion, completely, and to this day has proven that up. But started having marital problems and went through counseling, didn't work, ultimately went through a divorce, and it seemed like failure at the time. In my mind, it's like, this doesn't look good for legacy. We're going through a divorce. My 2 kids at the time, Ty and Caitlin, it was not a good deal. They're running kind of one direction. I'm trying to pull them another. It was not working. I knew from the time that I was young, I saw legacy in my family. There's 5 generations hanging on the wall, pictures from my great-great-grandfather all the way through. So on the same farm since 1895, all believers back for years and years. So I want my grandchildren, I want my great-grandchildren to look back and say, hey, grandpa or great-grandpa, he brought this to the table. And then I came across Chani. When I met her, it really changed my whole perspective, because I had truly found what I've been looking for all my life.
So I was married before Rod, and I came from a divorced family, so I never wanted my children to ever come from a divorce, right? So it was not a good marriage. I always wanted a baby, and I thought because of that situation in my marriage, I thought if I could just have a baby, I would have someone to love and they would love me back, and it didn't matter the hell that I lived in. So I tried, and I babysat since I was little, so I knew I was gonna be like a great mom, like I just loved kids. And I tried, and a year went by, and then another year went by, and then the 3rd year came. And I really got to the point where I thought I wasn't gonna have kids. And I say she's my Samuel because, like Hannah, I cried out to God and I just wanted a baby. So when I got pregnant with her, it was very scary, and there were times that I thought I had all these different things wrong, and I just wanted a healthy baby. So when I got her, she was like the greatest gift. So just like Hannah, she was dedicated to the Lord. Then fast forward, come to Texas, and it's a volatile situation, so I knew I had to get out of that with her. And when I finally was able to get divorced, it was very hard, and she was very little. So when Rod and I got together, he's like, well, I want you to come to church here. I think the first time I visited was maybe 2003. And I loved it. I cried every time I sat in the seat. We finally got married. We started coming, I guess, more consistently. We were engaged in 2005, and then Brinkley loved it. Pastor Jessica, the first time she saw her in that Super Jess costume, or the little alien, I don't remember. She was committed and ready to go. That's what got her here, and she always wanted to be on the stage with the power plant players. And when I was serving in Shock, I remember she'd always go, Miss Angela, can I sing, like at the end of it or whatever? And I would just sit there and just watch her. And as she grew at talent shows at school and stuff, she'd get the microphone in her hand and get up there just so boldly. And it was like, I kind of like lived vicariously through her to see just the boldness to get up there, and just her commitment. And Rod would always tell her, you just sing to Jesus. And then she just would do that every time. It was just like that's what she was meant to do. I just always knew that when we would ask, where's Brinkley? We would say at church. And then I would kind of be like, oh, she's at church. And then I would think, of course she is, because she's committed to the Lord. So where else would she be?
From the time she was little, and her dad was in the picture, I told her every day, I'll be daddy number 2, because that's your father, and you need to respect him, love him, go be with him, whatever. And I had that agreement with her dad. You come to my house anytime, spend time with your daughter, the whole deal. And then I did that for years. Truly, one of the greatest gifts that I've ever received was to be able to adopt that thing right there.
To see him adopt Brinkley was one of the greatest days too for me, because I know what kind of father he is. I know what kind of man he is. And for him to make it official and say, I choose you, and then she chose him back. It was just so powerful. And I think there's a lot of healing for me in that as well, just watching their relationship.
I think Jeremiah kind of was staying below the radar with me, but when he came and asked me, of course, I thought, this is a nice guy. Of course, I knew his mom and dad, right? And powerful family. I said, hey, this is good. The real kicker was when he came and asked me first time if he could kiss her for the first time. I said, well, since you're asking, no. But just the gentleman that he was, the sweet spirit that he had, I'll go, this is perfect. You know, Brinkley the whole time, she's playing volleyball, she's doing all the stuff, never really interested in any guy. And all of a sudden this guy comes along, and I've got video pictures of him when he walked in, of course, through a whole party about the yes on Kiss Her for the first time. We had a party at the house, both families come to me. I'm going, this is special. But it's been that way with Jeremiah and Brinkley ever since they've really gotten together. Those two have been made in heaven kind of deal. Pastor Keith has pushed us on and on. What are your core values for yourself, for your family? What do you want your family to look like? What do you want your marriage to look like? You don't get what you deserve, you get what you decide. And it's been a process. I think it is for anyone. Until you have to mature in the Lord to really begin to understand, because God is a God of legacy. Go back. How many generations between Abraham and David? How many generations? 42. I think it was 40 and then 42 to Christ. So God is a God of legacy, and it's all written down. You can read it all. So it is transformation to get to the point where you can truly start thinking about the next generation and the next generation. We talk about it all the time. What does it need to look like? You know, all the kids are moving in the right direction. The future for them is, of course, they have to make a choice. They have to decide. But we are a very tight-knit family, and church is a big part of that. So I see it all moving toward kingdom-minded for all of them. And, you know, my desire really for all my kids has always been just be everything God created you to be. I want you to experience everything that He has for you. And of course, we all know that's a process for all of us. And what does that look like? For everyone, it's a different process.
We used to think inheritance, and Pastor Keith has taught us, as well as Pastor Sheila when her book came out, like legacy, which was something totally different. I mean, I came from like no dad, raised by a single mom, divorced family, whatever. So there was never in my mind like an inheritance for me. That used to be a huge deal for me. I've got to leave an inheritance to my children. But then realizing the power of legacy and how Pastor Keith and Sheila have walked that out, you know, in their own life with their own family, to go, it's way more than just leaving some money so my kids have what I've worked for. It's, I want them to have our core values. I want them to love God. I want them to serve God. I want them to have a foundation built in this house, in a church, a foundation of a tribe of people that they can do life with and that they can carry on and pour into their children. So it became so much bigger than it was, I think, in the very beginning. And I think it's ever evolving because we want more, you know, for our kids, but it's along those legacy lines rather than just like an inheritance.
One thing that we are doing as a family, we are investing in the eternal, in the kingdom. So I know, you talk about a great investment. Investments we make today, you got a short-term return, hey, maybe it's 30%. That's an investment that'll go on for eternity. So the rewards of that, and I firmly believe that when you're generous with finances, everyone they don't want to hear the finances, but if you can be generous with that, then your heart's right with God. It's the litmus test of your relationship with Christ, in my opinion. But when you can be generous, and it's never really about the money. You know, Malachi, everybody wants to go, hey, I gave, I'm standing by the mailbox, God, where's my check? And it's about when He says, I'll pour out blessings on you that you cannot contain. The blessings are in Jeremiah and the Brinkleys and the Ties and the KKs and my little grandbabies that are coming in Brightland. This, money can never buy this. Money can't Money can't buy time. It can't buy your life. It can't do anything. So when we sow, and as a family, I know my kids get it. Pastor Keith has helped me to understand, the priest brings the vision, the king's the provision. There are thousands of men here that are kings. They just don't know it, or they don't see themselves as that. So it's a great part of our legacy, is to be generous, build the kingdom, right? When you get legacy minded, it is part of this whole house. What is this house? How many people are we affecting? That's legacy to me.
You got to get your kids in the house of God. You've got to be planted and established. I don't know how people do it without being in the church. I think a lot of people, like Pastor Keith will say, people don't go to church because they've been to church. But when you're in the right place, really in the right place, and you're surrounded with family of choice that you can go to at any time, life is hard, and it takes a village to raise a family. And when you establish your family in the house of God and around those kind of people, you're really unstoppable as a family. No matter what comes at you, you've got support. You've got some, people around you that love you. And two, you're not just telling your kids one thing, you're living it out. And then they're surrounded by, other people that are living it out too.
Jeremiah and Brinkley met in this church. The perfect way is for two in the house to find each other. Their values are the same. They love God. They're where they're going. So much like there's so many people that come in and out here every day. I spent days in the bar, nights in the bar. You're not going to find it there. This is second generation. So for this generation to come, I can't wait to see my grandchildren, because those two, they better get on with the babies, because I can't wait to see what those are going to do for the kingdom.